But I wish his outrage over Gaza was as intense sounding as his outrage over Glastonbury. And the death in Gaza seems to me to be infinitely more important than this story.
Get what is their incentive?
I think it's
because they did it. Nobody made them do it, John.
I think it's a big mistake.
You can't be equivocating between all these.
The pro-Palestine mob are now just blatantly gaslighting people. In this video, he's using whataboutery to defend anti-Semitism. Nothing to see here, look over there, that's the problem. He's suggesting we should ignore this story because of what's going on in Gaza, and that's what should be in the news every day. Gaza is in the news every damn day. Gaza is a foreign conflict thousands of miles away. This is a massive story that took place in the UK, and therefore it is more relevant to this country. Obviously, it should be headline news. Funny how he doesn't care about the millions of people dying elsewhere around the world. He's not complaining about the lack of coverage of Christians being murdered in the Middle East, is he? Why? We all know why. And to be honest, I'm sick of hearing people say the BBC made a mistake broadcasting this. More deflection. Imagine it was a right-wing festival chanting something similar aimed at Islamists or asylum seekers. First of all, the festival would never be allowed to go ahead. If it did, the BBC would have zero interest in broadcasting. And if by some miracle it was broadcast, the minute they heard any uncomfortable language, they would have cut the live feed. And those responsible would have been arrested by now. The BBC, like many institutions in the UK, is full of radical left-wing activists who are sympathetic to the pro-Palestine, anti-Israel cause. Let's just say it how it is. Jewish people are the one minority who seem not to be protected by law. That's because they are considered white Western colonizers. They are considered oppressors and not the oppressed. If it was right-wing Nazis making vile anti-Semitic chants, the law would come down on them like a ton of bricks. But because it's the Islamists and the radical left who are making those chants, that seems to go unpunished. Starmer and Labour said they were disgusted by the comments. Not good enough. Why hasn't he come out and said, let's call this what it is, far left, anti-Semitic, anti-British hatred? We all know why. And that's because where his biases lie. Anyway, take a listen to this.
To John and Gillian. John, what's your take on all this?
Well, they were obviously horrible chants. I mean, I want people to chant live when they're talking about the peoples of the Middle East. There's too much death. And it was an awful, awful chant. So I think that's the first thing that needs to be said. But I've been watching 24 hours of obsessive coverage. Front page of the Daily Mail, completely dishonest, saying the chant was something entirely different. So really dishonest journalism about it. BBC's got its knickers in the proverbial over the whole business. And of course, the Prime Minister talking about it as well. And, you know, I understand why he wants to get involved, but I wish his outrage over Gaza was as intense sounding as his outrage over Glastonbury. And I mean, I was looking at the death figures today in Gaza. 70 Gazans have been killed today, including a room full of journalists, as I understand it, and medics. That's been driven from the top stories of the news today. And as a society, I feel we've got to get our priorities right. And the death in Gaza seems to me to be infinitely more important than this story.
Gillian, what's your take on it?
Well, I mean, I was the Education Secretary when October the 7th happened, and I spent a lot of time with Jewish students in universities, in schools, who were absolutely terrified because there was a lot of this hatred towards specific, and obviously everybody's appalled at the death rates in Gaza, as well as the events of October the 7th. But it matters to people in this country. You know, these are British Jewish people just going about their business. And these kind of things, you know, I think the chief rabbi said it was almost like incitement to mass hatred. So I don't understand the guy who's done it, and I'm glad to see there's some consequences for him. The US revoking visa, his agents dropped him. I'm sure there'll be other consequences. But there were tens of thousands of people, or thousands of people, chanting this awful thing. And I don't know, I've never been to Glastonbury, but, I thought they were the sort of people that would hug trees, not be hugging Hamas. I just don't get what is their incentive.
I think it's
they did it. Nobody made them do it, John.
I think it's a big mistake.
You can't be equivocating between all these various things and saying somebody can get away with something because, of course, awful things are happening in Gaza. But we always have to be clear-eyed about this, and it's a difficult one, but you do have to be clear-eyed.
I don't think for a moment that all those people
knew what they were saying?
I don't think they were supporting Hamas for a moment. I don't think they were.
But if you say death to the IDF, you think...
Well, the IDF
you agree with that?
I've already said, obviously, I don't.
No,
but the IDF is the Israeli army, which is carrying out atrocities and war crimes on a daily basis in Gaza. Now, I think a lot of people feel enormously frustrated and powerless. They don't like the way our government's behaving. They don't like the fact that munitions are being sent to
there's a war on, John,
kill
that's
people.
why.
They hate it.
But there is a war.
And they feel that we are on the wrong side. We're not championing the rights of the civilians. These people are not supporting Hamas. And I think it's a real mistake to conflate people's sense of outrage.
We disagree on this because I actually think it's a real mistake.
Just let me finish that sentence.
Throw it under the carpet.
I think it's a real. I think it's a real mistake.
Say these things.
I think it's a real mistake to think that people. I think it misunderstands what people there felt. I don't think they're supporting Hamas. I don't think they're supporting violence. And I think they feel powerless. And this is an expression of anger.
Can I ask a different question?
But they were wrong to chant what they did.
Well, they did it. No one forced them to.
Can I ask a slightly different question? Is it a police matter or is this a free speech matter in your view?
I think where that, and it is always a line that's delicate, is whether it's a free speech or whether it's inciting somebody to do something. Now, the chief rabbi has said, and I think others have said, this is inciting hatred against a group of people. And the thing about it is you don't know where it's going to land.
So you think it is a police matter then?
Well, I think the police will be looking at this. I'm not, I don't know in terms of whether they would say it was incitement or not, but certainly there would be a case to look at it. What I saw, though, was even just after October the 7th, was some of the incidents that were happening all over London in particular, but lots of times in our universities as well, and actually universities across the world. And there was a lot of terrified Jewish students that didn't deserve to be put in that situation. And I think that was what impacted me. And I thought, how will they be feeling? Because I'm not Jewish, but how will they be feeling when they're watching all these crowds at Glastonbury? How will it make them feel? And I think that's something that I think we need to bear in mind.
Do you think it's a police matter?
I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. I'm sure the police feel under enormous pressure to investigate. We'll see what the police decide in the end. And of course, it's appalling that Jewish students and kids, or anybody who's Jewish
in this country,
should feel this sense of fear. And of course, that is utterly outrageous. But I also think it's important to remember that my sense is that the majority of Jewish people in this country do not identify with the Israeli Defence Forces, do not support. They're like everybody else. They do not support what's happening in Gaza,
it's more complex than that,
or the murder of these civilians. They, of course, want Israel to defend itself, but this has gone way beyond that, and this is collective punishment of civilians with tens of thousands killed.
It's been a really interesting conversation.